This video has been powered by IAC Electrical Pvt Ltd, which is a Kolkata-based manufacturer of hardware, fittings and accessories of phase conductors and distribution lines. Information about the company is down in the description.
Hi everyone, welcome to COVID Conversations. It's a new video series on the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically the second wave, which all of us as a country, we are reeling through. On today's episode, we have Tehseen and Monicka Vadera Poonawalla, who in the last several weeks, they've become almost SOS helplines on social media. They've helped thousands and thousands of people with hospital beds, with oxygen requirements, with medicines and with medical supplies. They have their own foundation called the Poonawalla Foundation, which has been helping people with food drives in Delhi, in Mumbai, and in Pune as well. And they're planning to extend that to other cities as well. As private citizens, they've been doing such a good job. They've been helping so many people, and I'm so thankful to them for joining us on this episode. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. I just want to start with understanding, how did you guys get involved with this entire undertaking, from amplifying SOS messages to actually becoming involved in the whole process of procuring people's requirements? How did you guys get involved in all of it?
So the one thing Monicka and I always speak about is if we are in a fortunate position, we must always have gratitude for that and try to reach out to other people. And something that we speak about constantly. It's not during the pandemic, but it's been throughout, even when we were dating or throughout our married life. So the one thing we practice is a lot of gratitude. When the second wave hit and we knew that the second wave was going to be this big, and we'd speak about it, that it would have been so big. Initially, it was just amplifying messages. And because we were sort of, we had the influence, for lack of another word, on social media, people started getting help. Once that happened, we started getting more and more involved. And it's just a question of picking up the phone and making a call. And, what we both think about is if a phone call can save a life, you just got to try to make that phone call. So that's what led to it. And this is where we are.
Yeah, if you can just explain to me the whole process. So from getting an SOS message on social media or on your phone, where do you go from there? How do you deal with that?
So with the foundation, we have our employees and volunteers, and I've assigned roles to each and every one of them, whether it is a call coming in case of any senior citizen or a COVID patient alone who doesn't have food, somebody needs a ventilator, a concentrator, anything that we can help with. What we do is we tend to look at the emergency cases personally to ensure that they are expedited, because we can then immediately call up the concerned person, or we have leads. We have a lot of other friends of ours, as well as other people on social media who are influential, who also, so we become a little community of sorts, where we get verified leads off each other and then connect the patient accordingly. So we just have now reached a stage where it's still chaotic because phones ring 24/7, but we formed a system where we can efficiently streamline emergency cases and then work backwards when we need.
Yeah, how do you identify that which case is an emergency case, or which case, which patients have some time? How do you segregate that?
So we often ask for the reports as well from the patients, just to authenticate. And, a lot of times it's the same request that comes to us from multiple channels, which is where volunteers come in hand as well. They keep making a list and noting down. We ask for the patient's statistics, their oxygen levels, their reports, and we're not medical professionals, but by now we know that, if the parameters are below a certain level, or, if they have other comorbidities, that needs to be treated urgently. If it's a senior citizen, pregnant women, younger children, people who are, whose saturation levels have dropped drastically and they need a ventilator or a BiPAP. So we now have figured out how we can streamline the emergency.
To add to that, we have a great network with all the hospitals and the owners and CEOs of the doctors. So
Yeah.
all cases go to the doctors, but now even the team is experienced enough to understand this is a super specialty hospital. This is a hospital that deals with nursing and maternity. This is a hospital that has ventilator. This does not have ventilator. It has oxygen. It has ICU, but it's not that level of the ventilator. It doesn't have the ventilator service. So those can be then dissected. It goes to the doctor. Everything goes to the doctor. Once the doctor gives us a go, in fact, while Monica was talking, I was just chatting, was a doctor saying that yes, the patient must be sent, and then the patient is sent to that hospital. So it's a complete coordination. And between Monica and I, we try and take a feedback on every case.
Yeah. So I also want to understand. So if you get an SOS message on Twitter, for instance, now a person who's sending that SOS message, they are tagging Tehseen, your page, of course, they're tagging you, and they're also tagging, for example, a Sonu Sood or Srinivas BV. So is there a coordination between you people also as to who is taking on this this particular case?
No. So a couple of times Sonu Sood called up because he couldn't get a bed, and I think one time he wanted to check on the oxygen. But between us, no, we don't really coordinate on that. What my team does is they directly coordinate with the concerned attendant. So Monica's trained them in that sense well, that they coordinate with the attendant. So we know that, okay, they have not got help, or they have got help from XYZ source, and then they are moving forward. And what we request is then you close them, so other resources are not wasted.
Contacted them, whether via Sonu to the other sources, we tell them to please update the tweet or delete the tweet. So, there's not multiple tags and people getting involved.
That's true. And vice versa. We send them something, we request them to just close the lead, so somebody else's resources are not spent.
So I'm saying a lot of people don't necessarily have access to social media, specifically Twitter. So have you also been able to extend help to rural areas, people who do not have Twitter or do not have access to social media? How do you reach those people, and how do you help them?
So that is something Monica and I have been speaking about, and that is something that concerns and bothers us a lot. We've been discussing this with senior medical people in the medical fraternity. The divide between the haves and have-nots, not money-wise, but technology-wise, is glaring. And I think that has been one of the disservices that's happened to India in the last 7 years, that the digital gap has increased. For example, without making it political, look at Kashmir, right? Look at where Kashmir was, and for the last 2 years, it didn't have internet, or some places not east. So the priority for India, stop censoring the internet immediately. Stop putting in whenever there's a 144 internet has to shut down, or censoring social media, and ensuring that the digital media reaches everybody. That is a macro problem that we need to deal with and grapple with, and future governments with. At a lower level, I think we also now have people on the ground. So what they do is they send Monica, or they send her team, which she looks after, a WhatsApp.
We set up the line number as well. So every time on our personal handle or on Twitter, when we shared posts, whether it's to do with oxygen or concentrators, we always provide relevant helpline number, which belongs to one of our team members.
Right.
So that number then also, let's say if it is specifically for oxygen, may not just be used for that. We have people calling us up saying that, they received this number, and they hope that we can help them
with something else.
So we've been a little fortunate with word of mouth, where we are able to help people who are stuck in smaller towns and areas. There was a request recently from an NGO regarding Kashmir, and they wanted oxygen cylinders at the hospitals. They're organized immediately. So, and that was via one of my helplines, which I put out for concentrators. So it does tend to reach people when they need it, but the outreach is still not as much as we want it to.
Also, I think the word of mouth that these people can help has spread. But more importantly, I think you were talking about what is on social media. But let me tell you, that's 20 or 30% of what we do. While that looks big, more of our requests come in through WhatsApp and through calls. So that is actually 70%. What's not actually seen on Twitter.
Right. So the job that the two of you are doing is basically what the government should have been doing. So y'all are actually, like I said in the beginning, y'all have become SOS helplines. This should not be I mean, the fact that y'all are doing this, of course, is commendable, but does it anger you that you're actually doing the job that the government has failed to do?
No. Right now, I think our biggest focus is as an Indian citizen and as a human is to help people and get out of this crisis. We have enough time to, we get frustrated, yes, but to think about, blaming somebody or blaming a particular party can come much later. We tend to focus right now on whatever we can do.
Monica is very, very clear on that, but I differ on that, Aman. That's one of the few things that we knew the second wave was coming. You were in West Bengal. You know what they did in West Bengal. And you know how irresponsible the two of them were. If you cannot have your focus on vaccines and not take responsibility for what you're doing. You cannot be patting yourself on the back and say, in November, I fought COVID, I've ended COVID, Trump ended because of COVID, and get away with it. This happened. And I think why I do hold the central government responsible for this is because they took over the powers of the state. Health is a state subject via the Disaster Management Act and the Epidemic Act read together. And now they're asking states to forfeit it when there's no GST money given, when states are left high and dry. It is one man deciding who gets how many vaccines. In fact, the story today was the help that's received from abroad has not been distributed to states. So how can one person be responsible? This centralization is responsible for that. And the idea of taking credit. I think that this is the greatest human tragedy since 1947 independence. And I think somebody must be held accountable. And I'm
exactly.
Sure
so I did want to come to that because you were saying that you are in touch with a lot of hospitals in Delhi. So has the foreign aid actually reached these hospitals?
No, nobody. No, not even if it has, it's very insignificant. A lot of the hospitals we assume should have received it by now haven't.
Not the government. What aid is reached is through foreigners or people who've done
private citizens, private NGOs who have contacts or who directly contacted the hospital and delivered the aid. All the government aid that's come in is so far not that I know of, I'll be honest.
Let me ask you a simple question. Where are the 60,000 ventilators promised in PM care funds? Where are they? Why are they not out?
Right.
Why are people dying from oxygen? So if you're now going to build 10 oxygen plants under PM care fund, what were you doing for 1 year? So these questions need to be answered. It's not even under RTI. Why is the chief minister's
fund? And if it's not even happening in the hospitals in the national capital, you can only imagine what's happening in the rest of the country in rural India.
A lot of states. The situation is very bad in a lot of states. We don't get to think about it because a lot of people are dependent on media for what comes out, but because we are doing at ground level, there's a lot of states where the situation is not even, it's scary, it's beyond scary. There is zero aid and there is zero kind of equipment, or doctors and medical staff are not equipped to deal with the current wave. It's horrifying.
Yeah. Tehseen, what do you think is the biggest failure of the government in dealing with the second wave of the pandemic? Since you have been dealing with so many SOS messages, you understand exactly is happening in Delhi, in the hospitals in Delhi. What do you think is the biggest failure of the government to deal with to tackle the second wave?
Lack of science and scientific data. This started from before the first wave. We now know that on 12 February, when opposition started saying COVID would hit India, this is March 2020, the health minister mocked the opposition. March 8, COVID 2020 was declared a pandemic by the WHO. The health ministry on March 13 said COVID is not an emergency in India. Lack of science. Encouraging Babas, encouraging Ayurveda and homeopathy, none of which has scientific basis, have all caused a delay in reaction. That was last phase. What happened in the second phase was the desperation before elections to do vaccine politics. So you remember the statement in Bihar where he said everybody would get free vaccine. That was made by the finance minister. The politics in West Bengal that happened over it. And moreover than that, the desperation to claim credit that one man stopped COVID in India. And in November, the president of the ruling party, JP Nadda ji, said, and I quote him, that COVID defeated Trump. India is safe because of Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi defeated COVID. Now, when you have this kind of unscientific statements being made, I think that was what led to this disaster. The scientific bodies repeatedly kept saying that we're going to have a second wave. We all knew it. And the vaccination. Before, I just want one more technical point. Pfizer and Moderna, and we know the Pfizer people really well, applied in December 2020 to enter India. They were told to do bridge trial. No one knows why. Pfizer, Moderna, and Astra, that is Oxford Astra, had both done phase 1, phase 2, peer-reviewed trials. They were published in Lancet, etc. I'm not saying the Bharat Biotech vaccine is bad. Theirs was phase 1, phase 2, but it was not peer-reviewed. No problem. When you gave it to Astra and you gave it to, that is Serum and Bharat Biotech, why didn't you give it to Pfizer and Moderna? You simply didn't give it because you wanted more pictures on the vaccination programs. And what happened now? You've now had to get Pfizer, Moderna, and Sputnik, and most of the people are not vaccinated, and most of the people dying in the second wave are the younger people. Look at the number of younger people. Look at the number of journalists, colleagues of yours that you know have succumbed to this. This is one man's idea of celebrating something that shouldn't have been celebrated. What is a tikka utsav? Like, what is the utsav about it?
Yeah. And you were specifically talking about the export of oxygen that we saw our country do even as late as January 2021, specifically when we ourselves did not have oxygen in our country. And now we are seeing such a dire situation. Our government was exporting oxygen and, of course, exporting vaccine as well. What do you have to say about that?
I tweeted that. They threatened to put a case on me. Of course, they didn't, because then a couple of newspapers got the story out. 9,200 MT of oxygen was exported. More than double last year was exported in the first 3 months of this year. It's not just January, in January and March. So we had entered the second phase. And this idea of trying to get the Nobel Prize. Look, the vaccine, there were certain international commitments. I won't go into that. But the fact of the matter was that if you are getting into international commitments and asking somebody to do it, why didn't you allow other participants to come into India who are asking you so that your population could be vaccinated? So the entire oxygen situation was a disaster, and India produces it. Amazing research, Monicka. And you want to speak about that?
Yes, so we actually, even at present as we speak, have enough oxygen to be supplied anywhere across India and export. Our problem is not production of oxygen, it is logistics. We're living in an administrative and logistical nightmare today. Our problem is lack of cryogenic tanks to move around. That's our biggest issue. There is enough oxygen present today in India. So when somebody turns around and says there's not enough oxygen in India, they're a little inaccurate. There is enough oxygen. It just cannot reach the people who need it. That's one severe problem we have. Also, again, with regards to vaccine, yes, it's a good idea to encourage export of vaccines. What we should have done is we should have initially understood that the carriers of COVID are people between the age group of 20 to 45.
So they were out.
They are not senior citizens. Senior citizens have been home. They're well protected. Yes, they need vaccine too. In order to protect them, we need to vaccinate the super spreaders, which still hasn't happened. We cannot blame manufacturers right now. We have to, look at why the government is promising free vaccines for all, but none of us have received any.
None of us have received. So yeah, that's one.
No, that's very true.
That oxygen from Sri Perumbudur does not go to Tamil Nadu. It goes somewhere in the north, and then Tamil Nadu gets it from Odisha. And the CM of Punjab said Lahore is ready to do oxygen. It's 50 kilometers away. You're not ready to take it from Lahore. You want it from West Bengal, or from Haryana, which is 200 kilometers away. I mean, there has to be planning. The whole idea of a central authority is to plan. If you can't plan, if it's going to be ad hoc, then why do you have a central authority?
Yeah, so I was saying that Delhi in the last few days, they have been getting the oxygen supply that they need as a city in the last few days. Do you think the situation has improved, even if slightly, in the national capital?
So a few days ago, the Delhi government set up a centralized, a link on their website where you could sort of go and apply for oxygen refilling via vendors. We were helping people with oxygen refilling as well across various vendors in Delhi, but due to the administrative restrictions, we had to stop once the website went online. Unfortunately, a lot of complaints that the websites, the link is non-functional, so people are not being able to get their refills. So again, if there is oxygen present, it's still not being able to reach a lot of people because of their technical glitch, I assume.
And that's the micro issue. On the macro issue is, if Delhi was supposed to get, Delhi's demand is 900 MT. That's what the Chief Minister's office has been saying. They've been allotted 700 MT after the Supreme Court and High Court came down. And yesterday, I think they got about 630 or 620 MT. So that is holding, because earlier it was about 300, 350
300,
where Monicka and me were up whole night trying to save hospitals, and it was catching up. But you see, nobody's really done a study. If they're giving Delhi 600, who's not getting it?
Yeah.
Because these guys are just saving face in the High Court and Supreme Court. But somebody's obviously not getting it. And again, the data is not transparently put out in front of the world, in front of the media, that this is what our oxygen, this is what's going where. That is not being put out again in front of the world. So I think that is a massive problem.
Right. So I just want to know, is the situation, do you think on ground, do you think it's getting better? Are you getting less SOS messages from within Delhi? Or so no, things are not, things are...
Oxygen-wise better, but ICU beds today and yesterday night, today ICU. Like we just been, I was up to 3 in the morning trying to with an ICU bed, and Monicka, me, we had Am Patel's daughter, Mumtaz Patel, a lot of us, then somebody in here, ICU beds are today a problem. Today it's ICU beds. So it's shifted from oxygen to ICU beds now.
We still get a few SOSs for oxygen, but thankfully the oxygen requests from hospitals have reduced.
Yeah.
They are receiving supply.
They are receiving supply. Yes. But the problem is the demand for ICU beds has gone up and hospitals don't have that.
Right. Right. Monicka, do you want to tell us about the Poonawalla Foundation and the work that you all have been doing for the last several weeks?
Yes, sure. So the foundation has been in place for quite a while now. We were just doing, work quietly and understatedly because we were focused on Delhi, Pune, Bombay. A lot of the underprivileged as well as our street animals, because that's a cause very dear to my heart. But somewhere down the line, since the pandemic started, our focus had shifted because we realized that there are so many people, so many citizens around us who will not be able to have the basic means to sustain. People who are far removed, daily wage workers, we have sex workers, we have a lot of communities that, people don't often talk about or think about, but are present. So my aim was to get to as many as possible. We're fully self-funded. We set up kitchens where we had people who came on board as partners. So we're like a little community that's working together. And every day we provide food to as many people and as many animals as we can across different cities. We want to expand more, but our work, and I want our work to continue even post-pandemic.
One of the groups works a lot with the sex workers. They were, we saw the flight during demonetization. They were amongst the most vulnerable groups during demonetization 2016-17. And nobody really spoke about them because they didn't have bank accounts, etc. And they had their monies to exchange. And since then, the lockdown and 4 hours last year and even now. So I think Monicka spends a lot of time trying to help.
Yes, because there was, the community is such, and the clientele is such that they're not very educated even now on how COVID is spread. So that left, them just completely. Nobody, there was no food supplies, there was no hygiene supply, there was nothing available for them. So, I ensured with my team and a lot of volunteers, to make sure they get the much needed, essential commodities that are required. We got on board a few people who could make them understand how Corona is spread, and there's nothing to worry about, just the kind of precautions that are needed for COVID. So it was a bit of a struggle, but that is something that I feel is important today, and my foundation will.
Right. You all have also helped with financing some, lesser privileged families with their treatment for their family members for COVID-19. Do you want to give me any sort of a story or any sort of an anecdote of somebody who was in a dire situation and you were able to help them through your intervention? Is there any memorable anecdote that you would want to share?
You want to tell about the story today, the call you got today?
Yes, so there was a gentleman when I started my food drive in Greater Noida area. There's a community of servicemen, and he's been him and his wife. They have no children, no family. They're all alone. And he called me up, and he's really nice. He's been so helpful in the last couple of months. He's elderly, but he's created a kitchen. In his locality, he's got other people involved. He distributes food to people who need it. He risks himself during this time. And unfortunately, his wife got COVID a few days back. And he called me up and very politely asked me and requested me if it's okay for me to find her an oxygen bed. He was asking me, I spent an hour talking to him. He was asking me questions about his, wife's ailments. And I said, no, there's nothing to worry about. He said, so she's just come out of cancer, but, she needs to be admitted. Her oxygen levels are low. We managed to get her a bed. He said, but should I let her go? I said, why? He said, I will, but promise me that she will come back.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart because I had nothing to say to him. But I said, if with the amount of work you've done, and the goodwill you've received and the prayers you've received, she will come back, General. And she did. She's healthier now. The doctor given her a green signal and she's out of danger. So in another 10 days, once her reports come negative, she can come back home.
Yeah, so she's off the oxygen.
Yeah.
So a lot of times sorry.
No, it's so heartwarming, and I can completely understand it. Just helping people like this, it just must really, really affect you personally as well. Tehseen, you must be getting,
A lot of people are old couples who are staying alone. Their kids are abroad. Yeah, they really sort of, and they call us with hope, right? Because they have nobody, and it's small things like getting an oxygen cylinder or just getting medicines sent to their house. Because who do they have? They have nobody, right? A couple of them. And it's also made us realize how, as a country, we're vulnerable. We have no social structure to help people. So we've now tied up with somebody who can sort of deliver medicines. We've just started this. We'll have cars available to take them if they need somewhere. As long as they're not COVID positive, that's the only condition. But, it just realized that there's so many senior citizens who have nobody. And they call us with hope. So we can't sort of put them.
It's that's something that it hits a soft spot for us.
Can't let them down. Yeah. Sorry,
no, I was saying that can people actually, or how can people actually who don't have access to Twitter or social media, if they want to reach out to you for help, how can they do that?
So we have a helpline number, which are now dedicated completely to the pandemic. I could, give it out. It's +91 7410 175176. It's available.
I'll share it in the description. I'll share it in the.
Yeah. Anytime anyone needs, they can simply reach out to us on that number. It's completely dedicated. We're sometimes flooded with a lot of calls. So I would also request people to drop in a WhatsApp message or an SMS in case the call is not answered. So that
on the same number?
On the same number.
Yeah, team gets,
and the
somebody
team gets back.
Right. And this is not restricted only to Delhi. It can happen in other places, from other places as well.
Yes. We try and help, anyone, anywhere, if possible. We do. So as much as we can, we would be able to.
It's just a question of picking up the phone and making your calls.
Right.
Just do that.
Right. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me on this episode. And thank you for all the work that you've been doing. You all have been doing some exceptional, some commendable work. And I want to thank you on behalf of the people of this country for everybody that you've been able to help. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this video, don't forget to virtually like this video as well. If you have feedback or suggestions for us, if there are people that you want to be interviewed, people that you want to hear from, do give us your suggestions, and we'll try and reach out to them. Do subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell icon so you never miss an update on this channel. Your support, your engagement is vital to the growth of this channel, so please continue to support us. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, don't get out of your homes if you can avoid it, and always mask up. Thank you so much.